1,000 kilometers of oceans that embrace our country are beautiful and teem with life, where the beautiful vistas of our country are spectacular and its diverse people are vibrant and resilient. For you know its people are its greatest wealth. Like us, you believe that there is vast potential in South Africa, and it is a country that has enormous potential, but a potential that has been constrained for decades by narrow prejudice and debilitating human neglect. Together with us, you celebrated the miracle of our peaceful transition to democracy. You were there when we began the road and the task to rebuild our country and our economy and to fundamentally change the fortunes of our people. Many of you, if not all of you, witnessed both our achievements as well as our missteps. You supported us and wanted us to succeed as you wished us well along this journey of history. And when we stumbled, you looked on with concern and great worry. When it seemed that we may squander the remarkable inheritance that we received from leaders like Nelson Mandela. Yet throughout these difficulties, you have retained an abiding interest as both domestic and international business in the fortunes of this country. We know that, like the people of South Africa, you have harbored a great and profound hope that we will prevail. This inaugural South African Investment Conference is therefore an expression of a shared hope and a renewed confidence in our ability as South Africans to surge forward and grasp prosperity. It is a bold and unequivocal statement that we are determined to put behind us the period of uncertainty and discord and embrace a future of cooperation and partnership. Partnership that we spoke about when I was elected as the President of the Republic of South Africa, when I said that our task to move our country forward is to build a social compact and to work with all partners to build this country and to move our economy forward. We are here to declare that we are determined to build a country that is driven by enterprise and innovation, to develop an economy that is diverse and resilient as well as prosperous, and to create companies and to enable companies to operate that achieve sustained returns, not only for their shareholders, but also for their workers that drive them, as well as the communities that support them. We are a country that is rich in many ways that we often do not appreciate. There are a few places in the world that have the abundance, as my sister Lerato was saying, of the minerals that we have. The endowment that we've received from Providence is quite enormous. Beneath our country lie enormous minerals, which we now stand on. We also have soil that sustains a huge diversity of plants, crops, livestock, and game, where the sun shines for nearly all year round, and where the golden beaches stretch forever. We have an incredible natural inheritance whose economic and social value we have not yet even begun to effectively exploit. Our political and social inheritance, by contrast, is deeply contradictory. Through decades of deliberate underdevelopment, the majority of South Africans were dispossessed of their land, their assets, their livelihoods, their capabilities, and were denied the education and the skills that make meaningful participation in the economic life of their country possible. The devastating effects of this manifest injustice still continues to define our society and severely constrain our economic development. The continued exclusion of millions of South Africans, particularly as it relates to skills and the ownership of assets, is the single greatest impediment to the growth of our economy and the development of our society. It explains the persistence of poverty, unemployment, and inequality nearly 25 years into our democracy. It is for this reason that we have placed the issue of economic growth and job creation at the center of our national agenda as South Africans. It is for this reason, too, that we have prioritized the education of our children and the skilling of our workers. And it is for this reason that we are accelerating the provision of land and other assets to the poor and marginalized in our society, so that they too, after hundreds of years of being held back from playing a meaningful role in the economy of their own country, can now play a really effective and meaningful role. And it is for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, that in April this year, we launched an ambitious and, in the history of our country, unprecedented drive to raise at least $100 billion in new investment over 5 years. We did so understanding that no meaningful growth and no significant job creation would be possible without a massive surge in productive investment in our economy. Over the last half year, as we have prepared for this investment conference, our 4 presidential investment envoys, Phumzile Langeni, Mr. Jaco Marie, Mr. Mcebisi Jonas, and Mr. Trevor Manuel, have traveled across the country, our continent, as well as around the globe to meet many of you as potential investors. Invest South Africa, our award-winning investment promotion facilitating agency, has compiled an investment book of projects that represent great potential. And if you have downloaded the app and visited the website, you will have seen this investment book that we've been seeking to build over the past 6 months. Today, a number of local and international companies will be coming forward to make announcements on investments that they want to make, to expand, to invest in our economy, and they will also be making announcements to expand existing operations in the country or in new established investments that they want to make. In addition to the announcements that will be made at this conference, we have received investment pledges from a number of other countries that our envoys, as well as myself and ministers, have had occasion to visit. And we have been truly, truly humbled by the interest of our own investors in South Africa, as well as investors from offshore in the South African investment story. We have appointed task teams to work with those countries that have made pledges to convert those pledges into investments. We have emphasized the need for more South African companies to lead the investment charge themselves, demonstrating that they have confidence in this economy and its ability to deliver decent and reliable returns. And in furtherance of this, and this has actually been suggested to us by business people themselves, South African business people, and in furtherance of this commitment that we would like to see from South African companies, I call upon South African companies to engage with our investment envoys, with Invest South Africa, on their investment plans, including capital expenditure programs, so that as a nation we can have a better idea what the future really portends for our country on the economic growth landscape. This conference, ladies and gentlemen, takes place in the wake of a number of decisive measures we have embarked upon in the last few months to improve the investment environment in South Africa. And let me immediately say, a number of the measures that we have embarked upon have been measures that we've been working on as a government and as a country to improve our investment case. But in the course of time, we have benefited immensely from our interaction with many of you who are seated here, who have raised a number of pertinent issues that you have said impede investments in South Africa. And following thoroughgoing consultations with many of you in our economy, we've been addressing issues of policy uncertainty and regulatory obstacles that you have identified with us, because you are the real operators of businesses. Obstacles that impede investment in a number of industries. We've been working with the World Bank as well to improve the ease of doing business in South Africa and crafting a new investment strategy, including an FDI strategy for the country. Invest South Africa is intensifying its own facilitation and aftercare service in terms of international best practice. Together, we are working to fast-track investment projects and to reduce red tape. Where potential investors have had to wait for years at times, we are working to reduce those timelines to make it a lot easier for investments to be effected with greater speed. As part of the decisive measures that we have had to take, we have had to confront challenges in some of our largest and most strategic state-owned companies, which have experienced years of poor governance, a decline in financial and operational performance, as well as corruption. And we cite this because we have a mixed economy where the state still plays a role in the economy of our country as owner of assets and companies, and where the private sector plays the most part. But where we've been playing a role as the state, a number of our own companies have faltered and stumbled along the way. And this is precisely what we are paying attention to. Given the crucial role that these enterprises play in our economy as providers of critical infrastructure, and bulk services, infrastructure such as roads, infrastructure such as water, distribution, electricity, and all that, it is essential that these companies be restored as engines of growth and development in our economy. We have replaced the leadership in several of these state-owned enterprises, ensuring that we have people who have experience, who have integrity and the relevant skills, and who are able to lead the development and implementation of sustainable business models going forward. As a country, we've also had to confront the bitter reality that several public entities have been severely affected by corruption. And this is a story that you've been reading, we've all been reading in our media, and for those of you who come from offshore, have been reading as well. And also the phenomenon of state capture. One of the urgent measures that we have had to take is to end this corruption, is to make sure that those who are responsible are made to account for their actions. We have established a commission of inquiry into state capture that has begun a thorough and far-reaching investigation in all these practices. We've also established a commission of inquiry into the workings of our South African Revenue Service that collects our taxes, and the Public Investment Corporation, which is the largest asset manager in our country. We are certain that these commissions will not only unearth all instances of malfeasance and governance failures, but will help to restore, and this is the important part, will help to restore the integrity, credibility, and effectiveness of these entities. So we are in repair mode. We are rebuilding, we are renewing, and we are repositioning not only our country as a whole, but also our state-owned enterprises. As we put in place the pillars of sustained growth into the future, we are working to address immediate concerns, specifically the effects of 2 quarters of negative economic growth in our economy. Last month, government announced an economic stimulus and recovery plan that aims to restore growth, saving existing jobs and creating new ones. A number of commentators have been very creative in their analysis of what this means. They've said, well, this is not a typical stimulus package. And we have said, hold on, hold fire. This is a stimulus and economic recovery package of a special type with South African characteristics. You cannot beat that. You cannot beat that, because there is clearly no other than this one. It has its own South African characteristics, which is based on the constraints that we have and the challenges that we have. As part of this plan, we are taking immediate steps to finalize reforms in key sectors of our economy, like mining, oil and gas, tourism, telecommunications, and a whole number of others, all of which have been constrained by policy uncertainty. The revised mining charter, which has been piloted by Minister Gwede Mantashe, has been finalized. He was able, utilizing this approach that we have crafted, of building compacts with all key role players in our economy, labor, business, communities, as well as government. Utilizing that model, he was able to traverse the length and the breadth of the country to meet community-based people and meet business and all manner of people, including labor, to craft a finalized mining charter, which he has presented to the industry and to the nation. Government has decided to draft separate legislation for oil and gas, settling a long-standing dispute that will provide clear direction and certainty to an industry with the greatest potential. So that is now in redraft, and it will be presented to the role players, and there will be thoroughgoing discussions in the usual, typical South African way. Through the publication of the Integrated Resource Plan, Minister Jeff Radebe has presented this for public comment. We have provided detail on the country's future energy requirements. Government also signed off on a number of outstanding renewable energy supply agreements, bringing significant further investment into a growing sector of our economy. We have finalized consultations with the telecommunications industry, with the efforts that have been made by Minister Cwele and he has consulted with various stakeholders to ensure allocation of spectrum that will reduce barriers to entry, but also promote competition and reduce the costs to consumers. Many South Africans are awaiting for the moment when our data costs, and this is a demand that is being made by students, by young people, that our data costs are amongst the highest in the world. But the telco companies are saying, as soon as the spectrum is released, we are going to see real action in the data segment of the economy, and our people are waiting with bated breath. Our independent communications regulator is now preparing to license available high-demand spectrum. We have initiated a review of our visa regime, and our Minister of Home Affairs, Minister Gigaba, has been working on this extensively to facilitate greater arrivals of tourists, highly skilled individuals, business people, and investors. And in a brief discussion that I had with President Xi Jinping of China, he said, once you are able to clear up the visa regulations, you will see hundreds of thousands of tourists coming to your beautiful country, and they will come in large numbers. And he also said, as part of that package, make sure that you also address the safety issue. And I said to him, the safety issue is prominent in our minds. We are addressing criminality, we are addressing safety, and our Minister of Police, Minister Cwele, is busy with clear strategies that are going to make sure that we reduce levels of criminality in our country and we make South Africa safe. We are reprioritizing our budget within the existing fiscal framework to invest more in those activities that we know will boost growth, including agriculture and township and rural businesses and infrastructure. We do so in a severely restricted fiscal environment. As our Minister of Finance said, Mr. Tito Mboweni, when presenting his medium-term budget policy statement earlier in the week, we are determined to ensure that public spending remains within sustainable levels and that we generate greater revenue by pursuing growth with a single-minded determination. We see infrastructure investment as a critical enabler of growth and job creation, and we are therefore consolidating government infrastructure spending into a single infrastructure fund. Many of you who visited our country in 2010 to come to the World Cup will have seen that the rollout of infrastructure was quite extensive. And wherever you went in South Africa prior to 2010, you just saw cranes all over the country because we were on a huge infrastructure drive. Following that, we tapered infrastructure investment down a little bit, And we therefore are re-cranking back to life our infrastructure spend and our infrastructure drive, because we know that infrastructure is a key driver of economic growth, for it enables infrastructure to be spread out, which enables companies to be able to invest with greater ease. We intend to use the infrastructure fund that we are going to set up to leverage investments from development finance institutions, multilateral development banks, asset managers, and commercial banks. A dedicated team will oversee the implementation of an extensive infrastructure program covering areas like water, transport, energy, telecommunications, and social infrastructure. And we're going to have a dedicated team of real professionals, architects, engineers of all sorts, as well as town planners who are going to make sure that we bring to bear all the professional skills that are going to be needed to drive the infrastructure project that we have in mind. Despite the challenges of the present, our economy has several fundamental strengths that make it a sustainable destination for investment. South Africa has established a diversified manufacturing base that has shown its resilience and indeed its potential to compete in the global economy. Yesterday, I had the occasion to spend possibly the best part of my day at a factory. We opened a factory, a 1 billion rand factory at the Gibela factory in Gauteng here, where we are now building passenger trains that are manufactured in our own country. The investment is a collaboration. Now, the investment is a collaboration between Alstom from France and the local consortium made up of black businesses and the community that surrounds precisely where the factory is. But the greatest joy for me was just arriving at this factory and being received by technically trained young men and women who are professionally well-trained engineers, technicians, and who were telling me how they are making the trains. They are the new generation of South Africans. I was saying to other people last night that yesterday I had the occasion to see the South Africa that we are seeking to build, where young black South Africans are now doing real outstanding technical stuff of building modern and safe trains themselves, utilizing the skills that this country and this democracy has given them. It was a real great moment. But what was even better, what was even the icing on the cake for me, was getting there and hearing that out of the 800 factory workers who work there, half of them are women. That women have surged to the fore. We applaud this investment as it confirms South Africa's manufacturing capability. Our Minister of Transport, Dr. Blade Nzimande, was very proud showing us this facility because they are building trains for the PRASA that he is a shareholder of, representing government. Multinationals with a presence in South Africa cite numerous advantages, from excellent financial systems to world-class infrastructure. South Africa is a regional manufacturing and services hub on the whole African continent. And for many companies, it also serves as the base to export products globally. But it also serves, yes, as the anchor and as the base where they can put their own headquarters and head offices. We have done much work in recent years to improve investment incentives, establishing, for example, several special economic zones across the country, each having unique offerings for investors. These include ready infrastructure for business development, reduced costs for key inputs such as land, water and electricity, and reduced corporate tax rates. We are determined that our economic policy must facilitate inclusive growth. Given our country's history of dispossession and the continued exclusion of millions of South Africans, we have a responsibility to bring all South Africans into the economic mainstream. You see, our economy has been operating, if you can imagine a car with 8 cylinders, for years, even hundreds of years, it's been operating on possibly just 2 cylinders. And now we are saying we want this vehicle, South Africa Inc., to operate on all 8 cylinders. We therefore need to include the rest of those South Africans who were excluded from economic activity to become the cylinders that are going to drive the economy of our country. Earlier this month, we convened a presidential job summit, as you heard Minister Patel saying, which brought together government, business, communities, as well as labor, to come together to look at various interventions that they could make, and they came up with a plethora of interventions for job creation. The Job Summit agreed on up to 70 meaningful and practical interventions that will, amongst other things, boost domestic demand, increase and broaden the exports that we want to have, create pathways for young people into work and develop sectors such as agriculture, but also develop pathways for the women of our country who constitute just over 51% of the population of our country. In addition, we are intensifying work to build a robust and effective education and skills development system that equips our young people for the place of work for tomorrow. It is important to note that 7 of South Africa's universities are in the top 500 in the world. This is a phenomenal achievement for a country as small as ours, that we have 7 universities that are in the top 500. There are nearly 1 million students in higher education in our country, and there has been a marked increase in science, in technology, and engineering, and mathematics graduates. And many of us will remember that the past rulers of our country had determined that the policy that they should put in place is that black children should never really be taught mathematics, because all they should really ever be trained for is to become hewers of water and cutters of wood, something like that. So that is what the policy was. And today, we're turning it around. We now have thousands of these young people in our institutions of learning. And I saw that for myself yesterday when I went to the Gibela factory in our province here. We've implemented policies to promote black economic empowerment, to provide black people, women, and people with disabilities with the assets and opportunities they need to participate more meaningfully in economic activity. Is this a good thing? Yes, it is a good thing, because by so doing, you're getting all South Africans to participate in ensuring that this vehicle operates on all 8 cylinders. And that in itself enhances growth, enhances a growing middle class in our country, and makes sure that the economy of our country continues to advance. Another area that is critical to economic transformation is land reform, which is currently a focus of intense debate across the South African society. There is general agreement amongst most South Africans that we need to accelerate land reform, not only to redress the historical injustice that was perpetrated against the majority of our people, but also to effectively unlock the economic potential of our country's land. When I was in New York at the United Nations meetings, I had occasion to go and address the people in the Foreign Relations Council, and we dealt with this matter, and I explained to them that this is an important task that all South Africans have to embark upon. It is a task, a challenge, and a great opportunity that all of us as South Africans must embrace and deal with. And after I left, I received messages that they now really truly understood. And I hope they've passed their message upstairs to another person who also needs to understand. We have appointed an advisory panel on land reform, which comprises people with extensive experience in farming, in policy development, academia, and law. The panel will advise government on the implementation of a fair and equitable land reform process that redresses the injustices of the past, increases agricultural output for all participants in agriculture on the land, promotes economic growth, and protects food security. We are committed as government to pursue a comprehensive approach to land and agrarian reform that ensures transformation, development, and stability, while providing certainty to those who own land, because we are providing certainty to those who own land, to those who need land as well, they need certainty, and to those who are considering investing in our economy, they also need certainty. Our approach reaffirms the constitutional protection of property rights. I want to reaffirm that South Africa is very, very committed to property rights. And we say there shall be property rights in our country, which, among other things, prohibits arbitrary deprivation of property, together with robust legislation to protect foreign investment, an independent judiciary, and a firm rule of law. Our Constitution should allay any fears that investors may have their factories being expropriated. That shall not happen. Your investment in South Africa is safe, and that is why we say you should come and invest. South Africa's strategic position at the tip of Africa makes it a key investment location, both for opportunities that lie within its borders and as a gateway to the rest of our continent. Earlier this year, African heads of state, as many of you will know, agreed to establish an Africa Continental Free Trade Area. A free trade area that will provide access to a market of more than 1.2 billion people and a combined GDP of more than $3.4 trillion. This will fundamentally transform the economies of many African countries and will further enhance the attractiveness of South Africa, which, with its diverse manufacturing base, advanced infrastructure, and sophisticated financial sector, as a compelling investment destination. And this is the South Africa that you are at today. And if you've come from offshore, this is the country that you've visited. And if you are a local investor, as many of you are, this is our country, right at the tip of our continent, but with enormous investment opportunities. As South Africa emerges from a period of great difficulty and uncertainties, and as it confronts challenges that are immense, but not insurmountable. We can declare with confidence that South Africa is a land indeed of untold potential. It is a land that has known the pain, yes, the pain of division. It has known conflict and deprivation. But equally, it has experienced the exhilaration of liberation and knows very well the value of partnership and collaboration. Because it was through partnership and collaboration that we were able to get where we are under the great leadership of leaders like Oliver Reginald Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Mama Albertina Sisulu, and many others. It is therefore our great pleasure to invite you to become our partners in realizing the great possibilities that this country has to offer. We invite you as South African companies, as offshore-based companies, to invest in our mines, in our factories, in our farms, yes, all over, in our call centers, in our technology hubs, in our refineries, and in our solar farms. We invite you to invest in our people, to harness their energy and unleash their latent capabilities. Yes, we invite you to become valued partners in realizing the vision and also sharing the benefits, as you must, of a new era of renewal, an era of discovery, an era of prosperity and progress and great promise. This is what South Africa offers, a land of great promise, a land of great opportunities. I thank you.
Thank you very much.